Hello and welcome to my second web design video. So if you watched the first video, we created something like this, where we used headings and paragraphs to add text to our website. But it's still just plain text and doesn't really look like a professional website. Today we're going to change that by learning how to add links and images. So before we start creating links and adding images, there's one important concept we need to understand, and that's attributes. Up until now, every HTML element we've used has been pretty simple. For example, we've written headings like this using the h1 element, and paragraphs like this using the paragraph element. The browser knows exactly how to display these because the tag itself tells it what kind of content it is. But sometimes, just knowing the type of element isn't enough. Imagine I ask you to deliver a package. If I only tell you, deliver this package, you don't actually know where to take it. I need to give you more information, like the address. HTML works the same way. Some elements need extra information before the browser knows what to do with them. That extra information is called an attribute. An attribute provides additional details about an HTML element. For example, later in this video, we're going to learn how to create a hyperlink. Here's what that looks like. Don't worry about the entire line just yet. Right now, I just want you to focus on this part. This is an attribute. The attribute's name is href, and its value is the link google.com. The browser reads that attribute and understands that when someone clicks the link, it should take them to that website. Without the attribute, the browser wouldn't know where the link should go. The same idea applies to images. Here's an image element. Again, don't worry about everything yet. Focus on this part. The src attribute, or source in its full form, tells the browser where the image is located. Without it, the browser knows you want an image, but it has no idea which image to display. As you continue learning HTML, you'll discover that almost every element has its own set of attributes. Some attributes change how an element behaves, others provide additional information, and some improve accessibility or help search engines like Google understand your web page. One thing you'll notice is that attributes always follow the same pattern. First comes the attribute name, then an equal sign, and then the value inside the quotation marks, like this. For example, this or this. Or later, you might see something like this. Even though the attribute names are different, they all follow exactly the same format. A good way to think about it is this. The HTML element tells the browser what something is. The attribute tells the browser more information about it. The tag creates the subject. The attribute describes the object. Now that you understand what attributes are, let's use one of the most common HTML elements, the anchor tag, which allows us to create clickable links to other websites. Now that you understand what attributes are, let's use one to create one of the most useful elements in HTML, a hyperlink. A hyperlink is simply a piece of text that you can click on to navigate to another website. Almost every website you visit uses hyperlinks. The navigation bar at the top of a website is made up of links. For example, on the Apple website, there are multiple words up here. Store, Mac, iPad, iPhone, these are all links. So these, even when you click on a YouTube video, you're actually clicking on a hyperlink that takes you to a different page. In HTML, we create hyperlinks using the anchor tag, which looks like this. I'll type it out for you. And it's two tags, opening and closing, that each have an A in them. And that A stands for anchor. By itself, though, this tag doesn't do very much. Remember what we just learned about attributes? The browser needs to know where the link should go. That's why we use the href attribute. Href stands for hypertext reference, and it tells the browser the destination of the link. Let's create our first one. So I'll create one that goes to my channel page. So we'll create our href, and then we have to put in our destination or the website we wanted to go to. So in this case, I wanted to go to my channel page. So I'm going to go ahead and copy the link and put it between these quotation marks. And now, in between the tags, you put what you want the text to be when you click on it. So we'll say, I'll call it my channel page. Again, you don't have to use my example. You could do whatever you want. You could use any other website of your choice. So now that we've done that, if we go back to the file we used before and open it in Google and refresh, and don't forget to save, then you get a link. And notice how it's in a different color. This tells you that it's a link. And once you click on it, as you can see, it takes you to the link. So let's break down this tag. The opening tag is this. Inside the opening tag, we have the href attribute, its value, and the website we want to visit. Between the opening and closing tags, we have the text that actually shows up on the website, which is my channel page. And this is what the user will actually see and click on. And finally, we close the element with a closing anchor tag. And that's how we get this blue hyperlink. So it is blue because the browser recognizes the hyperlink because we specified it, and then it's just a default setting. But we can always change it to a different color once we get into CSS. So congrats, you just created your first hyperlink. Let's make another one. This time I'll link it to my TikTok. So let's go ahead and create another tag. Then I'm going to copy and paste the link. And again, you don't have to use my TikTok page as an example. You could use anything else. So I'll put it between the quotations. And then I'll say my TikTok page. And now once we go to our site and refresh, another link shows up right next to it called my TikTok page. Once we click on it, it takes me to the page. So if we break it down, it's the same exact thing, except the text is different and the link is obviously different. So yeah, it takes us to a different link because the destination is different. But there's one problem here. Notice how when I click the link, it doesn't open a brand new tab. It keeps me on the same tab, and then I lose my website. So how do I keep the website browser tab open and still open TikTok or YouTube or whatever link you have? So we can do it using another attribute. So the new attribute is called target. So I'll create one for my YouTube link. That's what it'll look like. Same exact thing as href, it's just another attribute name. And then what do we put inside of the quotation marks? Well, we set it equal to blank. I'll explain what this does in a bit, but once we refresh, when I click on my channel page, it opens it in a new tab because we added that new attribute. But my TikTok page link doesn't have the new attribute yet, so it won't do the same thing. This is a great example of how a single HTML element can have multiple attributes. The browser reads all of them to decide exactly how the element should behave. As you continue learning HTML, you'll often use several attributes on the same element. Now that we know how to send users to other websites using hyperlinks, let's make our web page much more interesting by adding images. So almost every website you visit contains images. Think about YouTube. Every video has a thumbnail. Think about Amazon. Every product has a picture. Think about your favorite news website. Nearly every article has an image at the top. Images help make websites more engaging, easier to understand, and much more visually appealing. In HTML, we add images using the image tag, which looks like this. You might notice something different about this element though. Unlike headings and paragraphs, the image tag does not have a closing tag. That's because an image doesn't contain any text or content inside of it. Instead, all the information the browser needs is through attributes. The most important attribute is called SRC, which stands for source. The source tells the browser where to find the image you want to display. Let's add our first image. So I'll go ahead and add a source attribute just like we did with the hyperlinks and add our quotation marks. Equal sign. And I'll use this photo as an example. You should use the same thing for now. Dot photos and then /300. Now go ahead and save with Control S or Command S, and then I have to open up the website. And as you can see, if you refresh your browser, this image will pop up. You might notice that every time you refresh, the image changes. That's because the website generates a random image for us, which is perfect for learning HTML. Let's break this line of code down. First, we have the image element. Then we have the source attribute. This tells the browser exactly where the image is located. The browser sends a request to that address, downloads the image, and displays it on the web page for us to see. So without the source attribute, your browser knows you want to display an image, but doesn't know which image you want, which is why attributes are useful here. Now let's improve our image by adding another important attribute called alt. So I'll add one right next to it, and our equal sign, and in our quotations, I'll say random landscape. Again, follow my steps exactly, because right now you can't really do your own custom thing. So, what did that do? Well, let's talk about what the alt attribute is first. So alt stands for alternative text. It serves two important purposes. First, if the image fails to load because the file is missing or the internet connection is unavailable, the browser can display this text instead. Second, it's incredibly important for accessibility. People who use screen readers because they are blind or visually impaired rely on the alt text to understand what an image represents. For that reason, you should always try to include meaningful alternative text for your images so that anybody can use your website. Now let's make the image a little smaller. We can do that by adding another attribute called width. So for now, let's set the width to 250. So save your file, Command Control S, and refresh. As you can see, it made our image slightly smaller. Changing the width is a quick and easy way to control the size of an image. Later in this course, we'll learn how to resize images using CSS, which gives us much more flexibility. Before we move on, let's compare everything we've learned so far. With hyperlinks, the important attribute was href, because it told the browser where to navigate when someone clicked. With images, the important attribute is source, because it tells the browser where to find the image, and the different HTML elements use attributes, but they all follow the same pattern. The element tells the browser what you're creating, the attribute provides additional information about how that element should behave. Now there's one more important concept that we need to learn. So far, we've been loading images directly from the internet, but most of the time you use images that are saved inside of your project folder that we created in video 1. To do that, we need to understand the difference between absolute paths and relative paths, which we'll cover next. Okay, so now that we've successfully added an image from the internet, let's talk about something that confuses almost every beginner at first. absolute paths, and relative paths. Don't worry if those names sound complicated. The ideas are actually pretty simple. Let's look at the image we just added. The value of the source attribute is an entire web address that kind of looks like a link that starts with HTTPS. This is called an absolute path. An absolute path is the complete address to a file. It's like writing someone's full home address on an envelope. No matter where you are, the mail carrier knows exactly where to deliver it. For example, if I type this, the browser leaves my computer, goes to the Pixum website, downloads the image, and displays it on my web page. This works great, but what if I have my own image that I want to put and it's saved on my computer? Maybe I have a picture called profile.jpg that I want to use on my About Me page. Let's say my project folder looks like this. Notice that the index.html and the profile.jpg are in the same folder. Since they are right next to each other, I don't need to type a full web address. Instead, I can simply write this. This is called a relative path. Instead of telling the browser the complete address, we're telling it to start from the current folder and look for a file named profile.jpg. Since the file is in the same folder, the browser finds it immediately. Most of the websites you will build use relative paths because your images, CSS files, and JavaScript files will all be stored inside of your project folder. Now let's make our project a little more organized. Instead of putting every file into one folder, let's create a new folder called Images to make it more organized. Our project now looks like this. Notice that the image is no longer next to index.html. It's inside of another folder. Because of that, we need to tell the browser that it's actually inside of that folder. We do that by including the folder name first before the image. Reading these paths is like reading a set of directions. You start in the current folder, you go into the images folder, and then you find the file called profile.jpg and display that image. As your websites become larger, organizing your files into folders like this will make your projects much easier to manage, instead of having all the images and all your files all over the place. Now that we know how to add images from the internet and from our own computer, let's update our About Me page by adding a few links and images to bring it to life. So before I tell you what you should do, you need to know something first. I'll teach you another quick element. So this is called the break element. There is no closing tag just like the anchor element. Basically what this does is if you put it anywhere in the code, it will add a line break between two elements. For example, if I put it between these two links, instead of putting them on the same line, it will put them on different lines. So keep this in mind when you're building your website. So we're going to continue our About Me page with this in mind. And I'm not going to give you any specific instructions. I just want you to add a couple of your favorite images that you're okay with putting on the internet, and 3 hyperlinks to your favorite websites. And make sure the images you add have some from the internet and some from your own personal computer. So you can experiment by changing attributes like the width attribute and the alt attribute. I'll let you do that and get creative in your own way. In today's lesson, we learned what HTML attributes are, how to create hyperlinks, how to display images, and the difference between absolute and relative paths. These are skills that you'll use in almost every website you build. In the next lesson, we're going to organize our websites using lists and divs, which will make our HTML cleaner and prepare us to start styling everything with CSS. So, I'll see you in the next one, and don't forget to like and subscribe.